Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Grunska, and welcome to the Horse Barn Management Show. It's our first show back from a long summer, and I have a lot to tell you. I was supposed to start these back up in September, and we had a little fender bender, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But anyways, I want to double check. I have my friend Sherry helping me here. Is it on? Can you see it on there on the camera? You don't see anything?
I see you.
Okay.
I see you.
Okay. So she's trying to get on the phone so that if you guys have questions, you can ask away, and we're going to talk about it. Everything you want to talk about tonight on our live show. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Sherry Grunska, and this live Monday night series is put on by ProBarnManagement.com. And it's a site that I started several years ago for barn owners, for barn management. It's all about running a stable, running a barn, all the financial parts of it, herd management, every part that has to come with this type of crazy business that we're in. And the reason that I got into it is because we built our stable, Vinland Stables in Neenah, Wisconsin, 16 years ago, and we made a ton of mistakes. And way back then, I didn't know who to go to, and it was either sink or swim, and I didn't want to lose the farm, but we were losing money. I had a huge turnover of people, clients coming and going, which meant horses were coming and going, the herds were disrupted, and it got crazy. And yes, I cried tears. I thought we got ourselves into a huge mess. We had gone from 4 horses that were our own to 40 horses within a matter of 2 months, and it was completely overwhelming. I'm going to check with Sherry. Did you find it yet? You got it? It's on? Awesome. Okay. Yep. And you can see questions?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, but you can see. Can you see people if they're on? Years ago. Oh, we're still testing it. Okay, she's going to play with it. And so anyways, I had gone through like the first 5 years of running our stable, and I was starting to figure out kind of how to navigate all this, and I decided to start writing books on it. And I just felt like if I was in this mess, there had to be other people that were in the same mess. And I decided on social media I would start blogging and try to help as many people as I could. And it really kind of blossomed and grew. And now I have this just great passion to help people. And I have the most funnest job because I get to talk to people that are either starting a business, people that are buying an existing horse boarding stable, people that are building, people that are in it and having issues and need to figure out how to get out of it, how to change things, how to make it profitable. And I get to help them, and I get to go see lots of cool barns. I've been to other states to help people, and it is so much fun. And I realized probably one of the most important things I realized is how important our job is. And it's one of those jobs that is, I think in the horse industry, is definitely overlooked. People tend to think of the horse trainer, the vets, the farriers, all the special services that come in. But without the boarding stable, the horse industry would be falling apart, because there are so many people that don't have the land or want to board or want to take care of their horses on their property, and they want to board. And there's businesses, racetracks, huge hunter jumper barns. There's a lot of businesses out there where they board lots of horses, and it keeps the horse industry going. So my goal is for you barn owners and barn managers to realize how important your job is, how valuable it is, and to help you work through the problems you're having. So now, with that being said, first of all, if you're on and you're watching, let us know where you're from and say hi. We'd love to hear from you. And I want to tell you about my summer real quick before we get into this, because it was a little bit crazy. So for those of you that don't know, I wrote this book, A Step-by-Step Guide to Starting and Running a Successful Horse Sporting Business, 3 years ago, and it's been great. It's now being used in equine programs in colleges across the country, and it's a huge book. And this summer I decided to turn it into a vodcast, into a video series on Vimeo that you can download and watch. And the reason being is when you write things, sometimes it's nice to get a visual. So this summer we have been videotaping all summer this book. It's going to be in a video format. You can find the first 2 videos. They're done. They're on Vimeo. And you can find that through probarnmanagement.com. If you go on that website, it'll take you right there to the link. Otherwise, you can go on Vimeo and you can type in Pro Barn Management or Sherry Grunska, and it will come up also. And so that's what we were doing this summer. But the crazy thing was, about actually 6 weeks ago this Saturday, I had a horse accident here at our barn. We were putting horses out. It was early in the morning, and it was my husband and myself and then a couple employees. And one of the horses, the mosquitoes were horrible. They've just been horrible this summer with all the rain, and one of the horses just has terrible reactions to the bugs, the mosquitoes, and we were trying to get him outside. It was early, and I am, for people that know me, I am super careful about everything because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. And he was dancing around me and he wasn't thinking. It was an Appaloosa and he has very thin skin, and he was just all over the place. And anyways, to make a long story short, he's a very sweet horse, but he couldn't handle the bugs, and he ran me over. He just knocked me right over, and I went down, and when I kind of came to, I looked up, and my husband was like looking up, down at me, and he said, "Can you get up?" And I knew something was wrong, and I ended up, they took me in an ambulance, and I broke 5 ribs, fractured 4 more, and punctured a lung. So they had to plate the 5 ribs, which is truly a blessing because you heal so much faster. And I was in the hospital for 6 days. But 6 weeks later, I'm doing good. I'm back to cleaning stalls. And I'm not really handling horses right now, but I am doing everything. I cut grass today, but that was a little bumpy on my ribs. They're still a little sore, but I'm doing good, and God is so good, and He is just healing my body. So anyways, during that time we couldn't film anymore, so now our videos are kind of way behind because I got hurt. But anyways, that has been my summer. So I spent a lot of time on the couch watching Fox Nation and a lot of neat documentaries and all kinds of stuff because I was trying to heal. So if I did have one really sweet woman who was wondering where I was and why I wasn't doing the videos, and she contacted me and I told her I got hurt, and I thought, well, I better let people know. And I guess the whole thing about it is this was a horse that I knew really well. He had been in our barn since he had been 5 months old. I've taken care of him for over 10 years, and I knew him very, very well, all his behaviors, and he's a very easy horse, and it just proves that anything can happen at any time. And I guess even more importantly is if you have employees, make sure you have workman's comp, because I got hurt and I have insurance. But if you have an employee and they got hurt the way I did and you don't have workman's comp, there's a good chance you could lose the farm, if they sue. It's just bad. You need to make sure you're covered, because even the most trained horse person who has been around these animals, it can just happen at any time. And sometimes we let our guard down with the easier horses and things just happen. So just get that workman's comp, make sure you have it in place for employees, because you don't want to take a chance. It doesn't matter what type of horse. You can have a pony and still get hurt. So that's my story. And so we're going to get going here. And if you have any questions, just let us know. Can you see people now?
Yeah, I've seen people jumping on.
Okay, good. Yay! Okay, let us know where you're from. And Sherry will let me know. Also, I'm going to do one more plug before we start right in, because I don't know if I'll remember at the end, and this hour always goes really fast, is I hope this is okay to do this, but Christmas is coming. If you're looking for a really neat book to give someone, I wrote this daily devotional. It's 365 days of seeing God working through everything on our farm, and it takes you through all 4 seasons, and it's just a great devotional, everything about life on a horse farm, and 365 short stories, and it's amazing how you see God in even the littlest things, even those grain bags and the bad weather and what that looks like. So if you're looking for a Christmas present, you can find all my books on Amazon, and you can go to probarnmanagement.com and find them there, and it'll take you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can just go right on to Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And so I'm just going to put that in, and we are going to get started. Okay. So I wanted to talk, since it's our first one back, I kind of wanted to share what we've been doing here the last few weeks on our farm, and I wanted to talk about getting your barn ready for fall and winter. And I do realize that if you live in a warmer state, the changes, the things you have to do aren't so drastic. You may have to do a few things, but boy, if you live in Canada or the Midwest, or in a part of the world that you get, cold winters where you'll get snow, there's a lot of things that have to be done so that your place is ready for when that first cold temperatures dip and the ground starts to freeze, and the snow starts to fly. So I thought we would talk about that. When we start making changes here, it's a very busy month for my husband. This year, we've had a great fall. Probably, don't you think one of the best falls we've had in a long time? Mm-hmm. It's been so warm, so dry, which is incredible. So we've been able to get a lot of stuff done around here, and done without the stress of dealing with mud or really crappy weather, whatever, it's just been really easy. And that part has been good, especially since I've been kind of a little bit out of commission. I can't help as much as I normally do. So I wanted to talk about getting things ready and how important it is to get them ready for you, for the barn, and also for your boarders, and what that looks like for the boarders. Because if you have new people that come in during the summer and then you're transitioning to the fall, a lot of times those changes are changes that they are not ready for, or they have questions about, and especially when the snow is flying. And it could be something about when do you turn the horses out? Do they get turned out as long? What's the temperature that you don't turn them out? What about if it's snowing? How do you deal with ice outside? All these things will go through their minds. And also things like blanketing. Whew, blanketing. That is one of the worst parts of the winter, at least for me, but I know there's a lot of barn owners and managers that are going to probably laugh when they hear this and agree. Blanketing is a lot of work. And it is the time of year when you start transitioning into sheets, and then, light blankets. And then from there, you could graduate into mid-weight blankets. And then in the middle of the coldest part of winter, you'd go into heavier blankets. And that is an extra job that is very time-consuming. And if you have a heated barn, your job is even going to become more complicated, because if your temperature in your barn is a lot warmer than what it is outside, then as those horses come in from being outside, you're going to have to switch the blankets again down so the horses don't get so hot. Now, our barn is very cold. It's a pole shed. It's extremely cold in the winter. So even though I hate the cold, it's much easier as far as changing the blankets, because the blankets don't change that often unless we have a real fluctuation in temperature outside. So when the horses are wearing a midweight blanket outside, that midweight will stay on inside, and the horses do just fine. This part of getting your boarders on board with all these changes when it comes to blanketing and what you're going to do and when you're going to change it and the temperature changes can get really complicated, or it can be very easy. And you as the barn owner or the barn manager need to kind of take control of how you want to do that, because otherwise it'll become kind of a nightmare. So what we do is I send out a letter, reminders of fall changes, and in there I explain how we do blanketing. And we do blanketing here, but we charge a fee for it. And if you want to have it included in your board, you definitely can do that. Just make sure that your board rate reflects the labor it's going to take, because it's going to take labor whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're paying someone, and you don't want to lose money. And I explain how we do blanketing, and a lot of times you're going to be doing educating, because if you have new horse owners, they may not understand the types of blankets to buy, or what type or when to change the blanket, and they often will buy a blanket because it's pretty instead of functional or the right kind for their horse. And then the weather comes and they thought their blanket was waterproof and it wasn't, or it's too hot for the temperatures. There's a lot of things that happen, so the best way I can tell you is to get a jump on it, make sure everybody's on the right page as far as blankets, no broken straps, they need to be cleaned, everything needs to fit right, and ultimately you as the barn owner or the barn manager get the final look over to make sure that that blanket's appropriate for the horse. Now that may sound kind of control freakish, I guess. Is that what you'd call it? I'm not a controlling person, but I am a person that wants my job to be easy, and I have dealt with clients through the years that had ill-fitting blankets or blankets that didn't stay on because the straps were broken. I've had horses sweat because the blankets were too heavy, and then I had to pull the blanket and I was worried about the horse getting sick. I've had blankets that were not waterproof, or were not appropriate for the temperatures, and it becomes very stressful since you're going to be seeing the horses more than the people will, because they may come out for a patch of time for 2 or 3 hours, but you're there all day long, and so you see the horse, you see what's going on. So going into fall and winter, I want you to help you get all your clients on board, the ones that are going to blanket, and really talk this through with them on how you're going to do blanketing come the winter, where the blankets are going to be stored, where would you like them hung in your barn. And you need to be very direct, and it's okay to be, and it just makes your job that much easier. Well, any questions at all?
Yes, Haley wants to know, do you charge a fee for full board or only your pasture horses?
For full board as far as blanketing, let me know. Do I charge a fee for full board or just the pasture horses? Let me know if you're talking about blanketing. I charge a fee for all the horses on the property. So we have outdoor boarded horses, and most of them don't really, we have 2 that get blanketed. We have Big Frisian, he doesn't get blanketed. He handles the winter beautifully. The owners will come out and change the blankets for those other horses. For blanketing, yes. But if they want me to do it, yes, I will charge a fee. If I'm switching blankets, I will charge a fee every time. Now, I charge per time, but if it's something that they want me to do every single day, then I'm going to charge a flat fee for the month. So you can set it up and have both, a flat fee, and you can have per time. So for example, if I have to pull a blanket because the horse is too hot for the temperatures, like let's say we had really cold weather frost on the ground, and all of a sudden we had a freak sunshiny day that the wet temps were, almost 70. It happens. And, here in Wisconsin, the weather gets crazy. If I have to pull that blanket, I'm going to charge because the horse is going to be too hot. And so make sure you have that in your boarding contract, and make sure you have it in your special services sheet. If you want to have it as part of your board, whether it's outdoor board or stall board, you can do that. But you just want to have it built in and make sure your board rate reflects that, because that's a service, a very time-consuming service that you're going to be giving to these people. So you should be compensated for it. So I hope that answers.
And Lauren wants to know, how do you maintain your pastures in winter to ensure the grass comes back in the spring?
Okay. I think that's it on blanketing, so we'll take a switch. Right now, as I was just saying, my husband has been cutting down all our pastures over the last couple weeks. So what we do at our barn, because we don't want our pastures ruined, is the horses are not allowed on them at all. So we actually have paddocks, or we call them dry lots. And now the horses have been off of the pastures for the last couple weeks, and they are off until next, late spring. And we let the pastures rest. So my husband's out there, he cuts them all down, gets all the weeds, everything cut down, and then we just let them rest all summer. We don't ever turn them out on the pastures at all in the winter time. And the reason being is we have too much money invested in them, and we don't want them destroyed. And it sounds well and good to do that, and you can do that if you want, but if you're in it for the longevity of boarding, the horses will be okay in the dry lots, and they'll be fine, and that way it gives the grass a chance. We've had horses on grass all summer long, and they just eat it down to nothing. You have to give that root system time to rejuvenate and grow, and it can't do that if the horses are on it all the time. So we actually have dry lots, and they're not on them now, and he's cutting them down, and then they're just going to rest until next June, and then we'll put them back out, and they grow back really nice. And you got to remember, it's very expensive to reseed everything, so you really want to make them last as long as possible. So I always tell people, create separate dry lots to keep the horses off the grass, and that's what we do, and it's worked great for 16 years. Okay, any more on that? Okay. So talking about getting your barn ready, especially if you have snow, and if you hear something that sounds funny or you don't agree with, go ahead and jump in. Or if it's done differently where you're at, let us know. But one of the things, we have all automatic waters outside, so now we have to get those ready for winter. And my husband had to take the heating elements down to the airport where he works. He has a little part-time job down there now and then, and he loves to work on airplanes. And he had to get all the heating elements cleaned and all ready to go in all of our waters so that they're working. And if you have water tanks, like the 100-gallon water tanks, you want to do the same thing. It's just something that if you don't get that already, and you have really cold weather, and then all of a sudden they burn out, it just kind of sucks when everything kind of falls apart and the weather's cold. We also keep extra ones on hand because they do burn out after a while, but we just try to keep everything clean and is lasting as long as possible. So we do that to our water heaters, and we have the luxury, which is really a blessing, of being able to take our manure and spread it out on our fields, the fields that we lease to a farmer, and we can get rid of most of our manure. So my husband will do that every fall. Now I realize a lot of people don't have that. Instead, they have people that come and pick up their manure and they get rid of it that way. We had to purchase a tractor and a manure spreader so we could get rid of it ourselves, which had an expense to it, but for us it was worth it. So my husband sometime in the next couple of weeks will do that. And then the manure just keeps coming because those horses just keep peeing and pooping. So it'll come, And it's kind of nice to have some in the winter, because if we do get an ice storm and we're covered in ice everywhere, glare ice, we can put the hot manure down and make a path, and and then we're able to get the horses from point A to point B safely, because that hot manure will melt the ice, and then when it freezes back up, it becomes really rough, and it's easy for them to walk on. It's very safe. So it's just a little trick of the trade getting ready for winter. So we try to keep some of that on hand. Now, we had to close all our doors, which is always sad. Our arena doors, our windows, get everything ready that way. And it's just time consuming, but it's stuff we have to do. And I always send out a winter barn reminder sheet to everybody, because our barn hours change come September 1st, and they go back down from 8 to 9 p.m. at night to 8 to 8 at night. And I need to get everybody adjusted so that if they have lessons, they can reschedule those so they're early, because our barn is closed at 8 sharp. If your barn's open later, great. But up here, it's dark and it's very cold in the winter, and it's just nice. There are a lot of people don't come out when it's that cold, so it's just nice to have it, closed earlier. So that's one of the big changes. The other thing is, I want you to think about your winter. If let's say that you're watching this show right now and it's your very first time going into winter taking care of other people's horses, I guarantee you're going to have people, as soon as the weather starts getting a little bit ugly, they're going to be asking you, when do the horses get to stay in? When do they get to go out? And you are probably going to have a kind of an eye-opener to different opinions. Excuse me if I cough. I'm still sore, so when I cough, it's like little coughs because it hurts my ribs. And it's kind of painful, so I can't really get it all out. So you will have people that are going to ask you, when the weather's bad, can you leave my horse in? Well, what do they mean by that? What is their idea of bad weather compared to what your idea of bad weather is? And it could be differently. For us, we don't have shelters out in our paddocks for those horses that are in our big barn. So if it's raining outside and it's a cold rain, then the horses are going to be in, because we don't want them to get chilled or cold. If you have shelters out in your paddocks, then there's a good chance you can turn your horses out more often than we can. So that's something to think about. The other thing is, here in Wisconsin, when it gets really cold, we won't turn the horses out, and it depends on the wind, but once it starts getting down, to that 5 degree, it could be between 5 and 10 degrees. Once it starts getting that cold, a lot of times our horses are in. And it really depends on the wind. And I know there are other stables that turn the horses out no matter what. And I want you to really think about how you want to do that and what it looks like for your chores, because you want to be able to, when someone gives you a barn tour, when you go on a barn tour with someone coming and they're looking at your place, you want to be really clear on how you do this when winter comes. So for me, it's very easy to say our cutoff point of degrees is like 5 degrees. Now, if it's 10 degrees and very windy out, then the horses aren't going to go outside. And I can be very direct about that. Then that gives them the chance to decide, do I want to board at that place, or do I want to be at a barn where they go out even if it's 20 below? And there are a lot of people out there that have different opinions, and you'll find people like that. You have to set your stable up the way you want to set it up, and you just need to be very clear on how you deal with some of this winter stuff going into it, and then there's no surprises. So, do you have any questions, Sherry?
How large are your dry lots, and how many horses per paddock?
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about the temperatures, but I think that's good. Just remember that when you're thinking about it. So our dry lots are about 130 by 130 for each paddock. We have a couple that are smaller that have less horses on them, but the biggest one I think is 130. And our biggest number of horses is 6 horses in a group. And the reason we like to have less horses in a group is because it's easier for feeding them. It's easier for the boarders to go in and get their horse. We also have a lot more flexibility if we need to move a horse because horses aren't getting along, they're not letting a horse eat. Whatever the stress is that's causing on a horse, if we have to move a horse, we can. So we have that ability because we have so many paddocks. We have smaller paddocks that only have a couple horses on, in that herd. And we have some paddocks that only have 4 horses. But our largest one is 6. And we've never, in all these years, ever gone over 6. And it was a good number for us. It worked really good. And there's plenty of room for the horses. And I come from Southern California where I grew up having horses, and it was a much smaller area and you had much less land. So to me here, I still, after all these years, am just like, oh my gosh, I feel like we have a lot of area for horses. Sometimes people want even more. They feel their horse even needs more room. And for me, if I come across someone who feels that way, then our barn probably isn't the right barn for them, and that is okay. And you need to be very honest with them and let them know and just say this isn't probably the right barn for you. But like I said, ours is 130 by I think 130, and then we have some that are a little smaller than that, and the horses do just fine. Any other questions on that?
No, but we have another question here, and it's from Patricia, who asked, have you ever changed the barn grain because of supply issues or because the majority of clients migrated to another type or brand? We accept other types of grain or even offer to buy it for them at cost, but now we have a majority on another brand.
Okay, so I'll tell you how we're set up. And to answer your question, and this is about grain. In fact, if you guys, can you hear Sherry when she's asking the question? Because I want to make sure everybody can hear it. If so, just type in yes, you can hear her talking, because we think the microphone is picking up her voice. Let me know if they can hear you. But the question is about grain. Have I ever switched grain due to supply issues? And so the way it started is, many years ago when we first opened, I did what every other barn in the area did, and that was I included grain in our board. I included up to 4 pounds of what was way back then. It was like maybe a general purpose barn grain that I got from the feed store. It wasn't that expensive, and I included up to 4 pounds, so the boarders could choose. If they didn't want to use that grain, they could bring in their own grain and I would feed it, and I was fine with that, but I wasn't going to give them a discount on board. Well, then a couple of years after we opened, the grain, and it wasn't just one type of grain, it was all the grains, the price just started skyrocketing, and all of a sudden I'm losing like $700 a month because the price just shot up. And I had to do something, so I did something that was kind of unconventional at the time, and it definitely was not something boarding stables did around this area. Is I decided to make it separate, and that meant that I offered 3 types of grain, and I would feed whatever type of grain you wanted of those 3 types. And I would only charge you for the amount that the horse used per month. So if the horse got 2 pounds a day of strategy, I knew what that price was at the end of the month, and you would get billed on your invoice. Then if you wanted to bring in your own grain instead of the 3 types I offered, which was strategy, I offered a senior grain, and then a low sugar grain. If you wanted to bring in your own grain, you could do that also. So it gave the client more choice. I wasn't losing any more money, and overall I could keep my board rates a little lower. I never looked back, and I only lost one boarder from that situation that left, and I never lost anybody else. And there are still barns that include grain in their boarding stable, but when I go to help them, they'll call me and they're losing money, and I tell them to do it a little bit differently, and sometimes it's hard for them to take that step. But I have done it, and I've never regretted it. So I haven't had a problem with getting any kind of grain right now, but I'll be honest with you, different feed stores do things differently, and I know of one feed store that it's hard to keep supplies in, and I go to a different feed store that I can get the grain what I want. They never have a problem getting to me what I need when I place my order every month. So sometimes it could be how the feed store is run. It's hard to say. I haven't had a problem getting any kind of grains, and we also get a vitamin Equishine. Haven't had a problem getting that at all. So I don't know who your deliverer is or where you're getting your grain from, but if you have to switch because of that, I don't know if it might be worth checking in to see if there's other suppliers in the area. But we have switched, and we did it in a big way, and it never hurt our business. And the big thing was, it is a business, and I didn't want to lose money, and people need to understand that. The thing you want to understand is, if you're going to include a grain in your board, the common thing with people, and it's all of us, for example, if I'm going to go to a buffet dinner and it's a buffet, in my mind I'm thinking I get to eat as much as I want. So sometimes I eat more than I need to eat, and because I see all this food and my eyes get really big, and I'm thinking I want to try this and this and this and this. So sometimes when you have a horse owner, if something is included, even if that horse doesn't need 4 pounds of grain, they may want their horse to have 4 pounds of grain because it's part of what they're paying for. They feel, I'm paying for it, I'm going to use it, even though the horse may not need it. So I want you to think about that and how that's set up. Not everybody will do that, but some people will. And in the wintertime, when we have upped our hay and we are feeding a lot more hay for all the horses, that is an expense, and we have that figured out year-round so we don't lose money. But with your grain, you will have people that will raise their grain amount for the winter time and then ease back off in the summer because maybe the horses are on pasture, or they just feel they need the extra grain because of it being cold. So if you're including grain, you want to make sure that you have that dollar amount figured out so you're not losing money. It needs to reflect in your board rate. So I hope I answered your question. If I didn't, let Sherry know. Did she say anything?
There's a question. Did you reduce the board rate when you stopped including grain?
No, I did not reduce the board rate at all. We kept it the same. And so the people that board here now, they have a choice. They can buy grain from me or bring their own. But way back when we stopped it, we never reduced it. We kept it the same. But it did allow me not to raise my board as high as I needed to. Board had skyrocketed way back in like 2009, and it started going way up, and I would have had to keep increasing my board, keep increasing it. And the thing is, you have to think of all your clients. So you have some clients where maybe their financial means isn't a big deal, and they would gladly pay whatever for board. It's not a hardship. Then you might have other clients who are really good clients that you love having there, but every penny goes to that board, their horse, and so they are on a very limited means, but you don't want to lose them. So I tried to create a system where I can make both parties happy, because I didn't want to lose the maybe the college girl who is in college and she's been with me and now she's paying for her own board, but you know, she doesn't have a lot of money, or she's in her early 20s or 30s and money's tight, or they're raising kids, and I don't want to lose her as a boarder. And if the grain is going up, and then on top of it, her horse doesn't even get any grain because he tends to be a real easy keeper. And so now she's getting charged the same as everybody else, and her horse isn't getting the grain. So I decided to skip all that and just charge for the people who were going to use my grain. I've done it now, gosh, probably 14 years, and it's worked great. No regrets at all. And it's never affected someone coming here. If someone's not going to come to your boarding stable because of that one thing, the grain, then let them go. You know, I think they're looking at boarding probably not in the healthiest of ways for the horse. When you look for a boarding stable, you don't choose a stable because of grain. You choose it because of, you know, do the horses look happy? Do they look healthy? Are they being turned out? You know, the safety of the place. Are they feeding enough good hay? And you don't look at it for the grain. So if someone is not going to come to your place because of that one thing, then I'd say let them go, because they'll be the right person that will come, and they'll love your place and they'll love just how you do it. Okay.
No further questions.
Okay. What time is it, Sherry?
It is 7:12.
Okay, we're going fast. So we have about 10 minutes to go. So if you have any questions at all, please chime in. One thing I want to talk about is your expenses are going to go up a lot come winter time. So during the first couple years of a brand new boarding stable business, often it's really hard to figure out all these expenses, and you're going to feel like, you know, the meter's running when you're heating all this water. The horses are eating more. The bedding, you're going through more bedding if the horses happen to be in more because of really bad weather. And sometimes, well, let me backtrack. When we first opened, I had not thought of that all the way through. No one told me. I didn't know to think of it. Summer was great. Winter came, and wow, we were going through bedding and hay, and the electric bill just went through the roof, and I was losing a lot of money. So I had to catch up on that, and finally it took me the next year, because we had raised our rate, I was starting to figure out, okay, when I'm setting my board rate, I have to set it for the seasons that everything is higher, and even the seasons it's lower, and take an equal account about it. So if you're going to spend more money in the winter time, you still need to have that kind of flow with your board rate so that you're not losing money. You may make more money in the summer because you're not going to be using all that stuff as much, but you definitely do need to be covered for the winter. And I did not know that. So when my electric bill came, I was just shocked at how expensive it was. And, you know, and then I was running short on paying it because I had all these other expenses. So I want you to really think that through when you're preparing for winter time and the horse is at your place. The same with shavings. At least a couple times in the winter we have to call for extra bedding because the horses are in so much more due to the weather we have here, and that adds up. So now that I've been doing it for so long, I've already have that priced out because I know it's going to happen, and I want you to think about that. And if you're brand new, it may take you a couple full seasons to really get a grasp on it. But just remember, don't make your board prices too low because you will really regret it, especially when you're trying to catch up and you're trying to pay this and you can't pay that. It becomes very stressful. The other thing, too, is if you have employees, you're going to probably be paying more because everything takes longer in the winter. Cleaning stalls takes a lot longer. It's just harder. You're cold, you're all bundled up, and everything is slower, and so I tend to pay a lot more on employees in the winter than I do in the summer. And you want to get an idea of what that's going to look like year-round so you can figure out your board rates. Okay. And let me think. We talked about grain. Wintertime, you're going to have different opinions on how to take care of horses outside in cold weather. I have had, not very often, but I think a couple times early on, I had people who, when we put the horses out, they were worried their horses were going to be cold, and their horses were just fine. It was because they were cold that they felt their horse would be cold. And you have to think about the breeds of horses that you have at your barn, especially when it comes, like to wintertime. So, for example, we have, we must have 5 thoroughbreds at our barn. And thoroughbreds are, they tend to be hard keepers, keeping their weight on. Thin skinned, they don't get a really long winter coat, and all of them here are blanketed in the winter, but they tend to get colder faster. Where if you have a barn full of, warm bloods or, part draft horses, some real hardy horses, maybe some Morgans, that don't even need blanketing, it's going to be a lot easier. But the thing is, you really want to, your clients and the horses you're bringing in, you might be doing some educating on, especially for a new horse owner and they don't understand. They went and bought a thoroughbred and they don't understand that that thoroughbred is going to be cold in the wintertime. If you're in a really cold state, you might have to get a blanket for them. So be prepared for some of that, because you don't want the horse, you don't want the horse dropping weight. And you can feed them a lot of hay, but if they're cold all the time, sometimes the owner just needs to know, hey, this horse needs a little help. Something to think about. The other thing is, for us, it's a big thing to get our paddocks ready for winter time. My husband will, along the fence lines between each paddock, because the horses are walking up and down the fence, they tend to burr it up. He has to shave all that down with the skid loader so that once it does rain, the water starts flowing. The big thing we don't want is for the water to pool, because if it freezes overnight, then we have ice. And then we can't get the horse on the paddock until we get the ice covered. And our mornings are so cold here. The other part of it too is we have clay soil, and it really kind of depends on what kind of soil you have, but if you have clay soil and you get a lot of rain, once in a while, we'll keep the horse off that day. The horse is off that day that it's when it's really muddy, and let the ground just freeze up really hard where it doesn't have divots. And that way we can get them out the next day, because if you get a lot of divots in the clay soil and it freezes up, where you've got, what happens is you've got overnight everything freezing, and then during the day it may get to 32 degrees, but it doesn't get to that degree until about 12 noon. Then you have all these divots, and the last thing I want is a horse pulling a tendon or twisting a leg in all the divots. So the ground condition is so important. And if you have sandy soil, you don't have that problem as much, but we have clay soil, and boy, when it freezes up, it just becomes rock hard, and it can really hurt a horse. So a lot of things to think about when you're winterizing your barn and getting ready for winter and fall. But it is, fall is my favorite time of year, and I'm not crazy about winter, but it's been a long summer, so I'm kind of glad it's over. And anyways, I think that is it, that all we're going to talk about tonight. Did you?
I have another question.
Okay, if you got a question, shoot, and that'll probably be the last one.
Okay, it's how much would you say your average horse costs per month to care for bedding, hay, grain?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Let me, because I average it out. So I'm not going to give you an exact number. Let me figure that and get back to you on that, because the way I do it is I have really big horses in our barn. I have young horses that eat a lot, big horses that eat a lot. I have ponies in our barn that eat very little. So the hay part of it is so different because we feed so differently for each horse. The other part of it is the bedding is the same across the board. I mean, we have one horse that they pay for extra bedding because the horse gets hock sores. But that is that we do bulk bedding. And what I do is when I tell people you're figuring out your expenses, what you're going to do is you're going to take the number of horses. So in our big barn, we have 27 horses. I'm going to take 27 horses. And if my bedding costs me $650 for the month, and I get a delivery every month, then I need to divide that out by 12, by all the horses for 12 months. And then I have to add in a couple extra because I know there's going to be a couple months where we get extra grain. So I separate each one out. Hay is a little bit more challenging because seriously, we have 2 little ponies in our barn and they pay the same board as the full-size horses. We've had young horses come that are growing and being worked every day, and they eat a lot. They get fed extra hay. So I can't give you an exact dollar amount on that one, and that will change. The rest of it kind of stays the same across the board as far as the care, and we do have a separate sheet for special services. Was there another part besides the hay and the grain on that question?
Bedding.
Yeah, bedding. And bedding is going to be straight across. I mean, we bed the same for all the horses. If they want extra bedding due to a medical condition, then they pay for that extra bedding. But that part is the same. So that part is not different. But the hay is where I think people get hung up the most, is on the hay and the expensive hay. And they haven't figured out enough. And we don't charge extra for extra bigger horses or less for little horses. We charge it across the same because it really does equal out. I mean, if I had a barn full of draft horses, you know, then of course my board would be a lot higher because I'd be feeding all these draft horses the same thing. But because I only have a few drafts and I have a couple ponies, it all kind of equals out with all your other breeds because we're a general purpose barn. We're not a one type of breed barn. And, you know, but you do notice a difference when you have young horses coming in and they're growing and they're eating a lot more. That part I've never worried about with the hay. It's always equaled out. Now, the big thing is hay, depending on how you feed it and where you're getting it from, is going to, and what part of the country you live in, because hay in Wisconsin is a lot less money than I know it is out on the West Coast. So I would make sure that when you're estimating on the high side, just so that you're not losing money on hay. And if you want to go the other route where you want to charge depending on how much the horse eats, so for an example, you say that every horse gets 2 flakes of hay and anything over and above that's going to be an extra charge. That to me just seems like a lot of work and is very complicated. The other part of that is for our horses, they get fed outside in herds, and I can't keep track of, you know, some horses just eat more than others, and the dominant horses are going to go after the hay a little bit more. So I want to make sure that if I'm doing it outside in herds outside, that when I come in, they come in at night, I can really adjust it and make sure, because our big thing is we don't want horses to lose weight that need to put on weight. And you're also dealing with the chunky monkey horses, the ones that are heavy and need to lose a little weight, so you might feed a little less. So I can't give you a dollar amount on that, but the bedding itself runs pretty straight across. No matter what size horse we have, we bed about the same, and it works out fine. Okay, that's it.
There's no further questions.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. We kind of talked about a bunch of different things with fall and winter, and we're back. We'll be here next Monday, and I will create an event on Facebook and pick a subject, but remember, send in your questions early, and you can ask questions while we're live, and I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. Also, please check out probarnmanagement.com. I have blogs on there, and I have links to my vodcast. I have all kinds of resources, and we're on there. And I've also been putting stuff on YouTube a little bit, but basically here just on Facebook and then on the website. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. If you have a subject you want me to talk about, please send it in, and because there's so much to talk about when it comes to horse boarding, and I'd rather talk about what you guys want to hear instead of me just rambling. So anyways, have a blessed week, and I pray that your week goes great for you, and no matter what area you are in your horse business, whether you're building or you're running it already. And if you have any questions, just contact me. I'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much. Is that